To those of you joining us today, thank you for watching the Woburn Spotlight. I'm your host, Tyler Gates, here to bring you some positivity by talking to those in town, making big strides for the greater good. Today I'm really fortunate to have with me Sylvia Anthony from Sylvia's Haven. Sylvia, thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's such a pleasure. So I was really lucky to hear just a little bit about your story prior to us shooting the show today. But for anyone that isn't familiar with you, Sylvia, or your nonprofit, do you mind just telling us a little bit about you?
Well, I'm 89 years old. I was born in the city of Boston, raised in the city of Boston, and worked generally in offices until the 60s, I'd say. And 70s, and it wasn't until 1987 that I found the shelter that is now Sylvia's Haven. Before that, it was called Life of the Little Ones.
Life of the Little Ones.
And that was because I was doing just pregnant girls at the time.
Okay.
And then when we went to Fort Devens, we knew that it was going to be much bigger, and my board said, you better change the name. We want to get corporations to give, you know, and whatnot, and we think you should change the name. And they named it Sylvia's Haven.
Okay.
So it became Sylvia's Haven.
Yeah. Wonderful. So how, and you started, and you said, you mentioned Fort Devens, wasn't it? Or how do you say it?
It was Fort Devens. Now
Devens,
it's called
okay.
only Devens.
Okay, Devens, Fort Devens. So you were somewhere prior to Fort Devens?
Oh, yeah.
And your journey to Fort Devens was a couple-year process.
Oh, it was 10 years, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, if you're okay with that.
Okay. Well, first of all, I got married very young.
Yeah.
At 18 and a half. By 40, my children were all grown up. I had a daughter 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And naturally, because I got married so young, there was a divorce. 10 years later, I went looking for a job as an accountant. And I went to a personnel agency in Boston called Double M. It was Double M Executive Placement. And I went there looking for a job as an accountant. And I went in and I brought my resume and whatnot. I went to the receptionist. She had a young man come and interview me, and the young man was new at this. He was being trained, but he was only in his 20s. To him, I was 39 going on 40. I was an old lady. So he took my resume and he brought it to his manager and he says, take a look at this. He says, can we do anything with this? And the man looked at it and he said, I can think of 4 or 5 places I could place her right now. So he came over and he interviewed me, and I got a job in a law firm for 26 lawyers doing the accounting for him. That man ended up being my husband.
Oh, look at that. What a pretty good interview, huh?
That was quite an interview.
Oh my gosh.
So that's what happened. And we were married for 17 and a half years, and he got cancer then. And that's when we started this shelter for homeless women and children. He knew I wanted a shelter, and he helped me put it together.
Yeah, it was really amazing, this story you shared with me prior to us coming on about him finding, I think it was just something as simple as a TV commercial or a magazine commercial. Your husband noticed the shelter, and you were thinking of things to help out.
It wasn't that. He was watching TV.
TV, was it? Okay.
And he was watching Jerry Falwell, who was a minister.
Yes.
And Jerry Falwell was saying that he had a shelter for pregnant girls. And he was getting up in age and he wanted somebody to carry it over. And he happened to say, I was in the kitchen at the time and I was washing breakfast dishes. And my husband called me to come in and see because he knew I wanted a shelter. Mm-hmm. So I went in, and Jerry Falwell was saying that he had this shelter and he put together a manual called a Save a Baby syllabus.
Okay.
And that syllabus was this manual he was going to give to anyone free of charge if they wanted to run a shelter like his. And I said to my husband, that's what I want. So then Rick, sick as he was already terminally ill with cancer, and he knew it. But he had gone to college for marketing, advertising, and public relations. He got on the phone and he started networking. He got a lawyer to do my articles of incorporation pro bono. They got me incorporated for the state pro bono and started my nonprofit status. So by the time, this was in January 25th, 1987,
Okay.
by that time, my husband was very ill.
Mm-hmm.
And we got incorporated then, and he died March 30th. So that was then. And the last two things he said was, go get the girls, and I'll always take care of you. So I had a pity party for about a month, feeling sorry for myself. Then I got a hold of myself. He said, go get the girls.
Now you got to go get the girls.
Now I got to go get the girls. So he had been talking with people in the business and whatnot, and he come across this thing called Pregnancy Help, an organization, a Catholic organization. And all they did was interview girls who were pregnant that needed a place to stay. And they would tell them where to go or get a place for them. So at that point, I went to the woman and I says, all right, I'm ready. And I put the first 3 girls in my rented apartment in Everett.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, right, exactly. So that's how I started.
Oh, wow. And you grew at one point to be one of the
What's that?
You grew at one point to be one of the larger organizations and shelters in America. Isn't that true?
The second largest in the country.
Second largest in the country.
And that was at Fort Devon.
That's not a small accomplishment.
In that time, because we sheltered girls in 40 of the 50 townhouses we had,
Mm-hmm.
we went through 100 girls a year for 9 years. So that was 900. Today, we're at exactly 1,100 women and children that I've helped to date.
That's amazing.
But that's 32 years.
32 years. So you've seen quite a few different changes, and even different houses of where you've put them. Like you said, you started in Everett and made it up to Fort Devens.
Yeah.
And that was 50 something, 52 townhouses, did you say?
50.
50. That's amazing.
And I actually had the girls living in 40. I needed 10 of them just to house the stuff. People would give me donations of furniture and clothing and whatnot. I filled 10 houses full of furniture.
I believe it.
And what
That's
would
amazing.
happen is when the girls come in, I divided it up so that every 3 families had a house mother or a resident manager,
Okay.
so that each one would be responsible for 3 families. And when they come in, they go to the resident manager would take them over to what we call donations, and they would pick all the furniture and everything they wanted to fill their house, clothing and all. We even provided some food through the food bank. So they really had it quite easy. And what would happen is, because the stuff kept coming in so much all the time, is when they left, I would let them take all the furniture and everything they had and take it with them. So they started out with everything.
It really helps them get their feet under them.
That's
I'm
right.
Sure.
That's right. I can't do that today.
No.
But I did that.
Things have changed a little bit.
Yeah, right. It was something else. It was so bad. I mean, we had like a community all our own. There was psychiatrists that would come in and stay, interview girls and whatnot, psychologists and whatnot. There was WIC that came for the milk. There were all kinds of people coming to help. And they went to school. The school buses took them.
Yeah.
To school. They went to Harvard schools because we were in Harvard soil.
Right.
So they got very good education.
That's great.
Whatnot, and it was really very nice. It was like having a town all of your own.
Yeah.
And they really loved it. So what happened was, I have a 2-year tenancy. I tell them they can stay for 2 years. In that 2 years, I expect them to kind of find their way to get someplace and figure out what they're going to do and be on their own. And get a Section 8 or something to get them housing, and whatnot. So as a result, the girls were so comfortable there. I actually, of all the hundreds every year, I had to take 3 and actually bring them to court. They had their certificates to get a Section 8 and everything, and they still didn't want to leave. So the judge had to tell them, "You gotta go. It's time. Your 2 years are up."
You gave them such great housing.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You know why that was? All the people in all those 4 communities around them gave everything. And come Christmas time, they give toys galore. Every child had over 30 toys apiece.
Oh my goodness.
So what would happen is, let's say the girl had her housing in November.
Yeah.
And she knew that she was going to be out of there before Christmas.
Yeah.
And she'd been there for 2 years, so she knew what she was going to get at Christmas time.
Yeah.
They didn't want to leave because it was before Christmas.
Yeah.
But that's what happened.
That's what happened.
So that's it.
And that building, at one point, you had to move on from that location, and now you have a couple family home in Lowell, was it?
Lowell, yes.
Lowell, wonderful. And so you're still servicing
Yes.
families to this day.
Yes,
Wonderful.
absolutely.
You have so much energy. I was saying before you came in, you're busy. 89 is just a number, right?
That's right, exactly. That's the way I look at it. Age is a number. It depends on how well you are at that time.
Yeah.
But to me, as long as God keeps me going like this, I'll keep going. That's all.
Yes.
So-
Wonderful. So I know the big question is, Sylvia, how do our listeners, or how can we get involved and help? Because I know Sylvia's Haven right now, just like many nonprofits, are looking for some assistance.
Well, absolutely. It's costing me $1,900 a month for rent there. And believe me, that isn't what I'm getting. They give you 30% of what they're getting. And when they're down and out, they have practically nothing. Mm-hmm. So that it's very, very difficult. And I do need the money to keep going. And there's no two ways about it. Unfortunately, today, the rents are so high everywhere. What I'm finding is some people are being evicted just because they can't pay their rent and coming to me. So that it's very, very difficult. And in order for me to keep going, yes, I do need the money, and I do have to have it. And anybody who wants to help, why, I certainly would appreciate it. I'm at 90 Mount Vernon Street in Winchester, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. The name is Sylvia's Haven. They can call me up, and or come down or whatever, and or send me some donations. Believe me, I would appreciate it greatly.
Is there a good phone number to reach you at, Sylvia?
617-943-4794.
Okay, we'll make sure Lauren throws that up on the screen for you.
617, that's my cell phone. Okay. And I say that's the best number because I'm not always at the office. I'm here now, so that I've got the cell phone with me at all times.
Yep.
So 617-943-4794 would be the best number to reach me at.
Wonderful. And if anyone had questions about your organization,
I'd be glad to
how
give
they
them.
can get involved, you'd be
Sure.
happy to talk. And you've written a book as well yourself. Do you mind talking a little bit about that?
Yes, it's a biography. What happened was, I just decided to write it.
Yeah.
But when I wrote it as an autobiography.
Okay.
And then when I got through with it, it wasn't that I didn't like the book, but I didn't like saying I did this and I did that.
Okay, that's
so
fair.
I wanted it to be like somebody would do it in third person form, like they're telling a story. So I shelved it for about 7 years. Then when I moved after Fort Devens and I moved to Revere, I had my maintenance man become my assistant because he was the kind of guy that whatever he didn't know, he would look up in a book and he would learn it.
Yeah.
And that was the way he was with the maintenance and anything else. He was fantastic that way. He downloaded the whole computer for instructions. So he said to me at one point, you know, Sylvia, he says, I could use some help. And I worked with a man that knows computers very well. Can I ask him to come here? He's retired now. I said, sure. So he came down, and he was with us for weeks. Well, the more he's into it, the more he's learning about me, the more interested he's getting. And at one point he says to me, you should write a book. I said, I did. He said, you did? I said, yes. I said, but it's in It's an autobiography, and I want somebody to turn it into a third-person form, so that if you're telling the story. And I knew he was a college graduate, and he seemed to have, some brain. I said, "You want to do it?" He says to me, "Well, I got to ask my wife."
Pretty good response.
Yeah. So I kind of thought, we don't see him all the time. It'll take a couple of weeks or something. In 2 days, he come back. My wife says I should do it. So
Fair
that's
enough.
what he did. He made it, and he turned it around into third-person form. And back in 2015, it was launched on Amazon, and it became #1 in 4 categories. I passed Joel Osteen. He was #5, and I was #1.
What's the title of your book?
Till the End of Time.
Till the End of Time.
It starts when I was conceived, right up till I was 85 years old.
Are you going to write another chapter, Sylvia?
Yes, I'm gonna.
Yeah?
I'm gonna
Good,
do
good,
one
good.
last revision. I'm gonna do.
Okay. Oh, that was my next question. Okay, good.
Because there's been 2 revisions. I started it in 2007. I published the first one in 2007. In 2011, I did another one, and then 2015, I did another. Just bringing it up to date. And I'm gonna do one more, and that's it.
Okay. Are you waiting for the 90th birthday for that one, or
That's
are you-
right,
yeah?
exactly, and that's only
Oh,
next year.
okay.
This October, in fact.
Really?
Yeah,
Exciting
October
stuff.
5th.
Exciting stuff. So, are there any highlights from the book, which is your life, that you would want to share with us? Any highlights of your life that come right to mind? That
Oh, there are a lot of highlights.
I'm sure we could spend a
But
whole
you
nother
know
couple
what?
of hours on
I
this.
think I'll tell you of one girl
Yes,
that to me
please.
is the best incident I've had in all of this. Don't get me wrong, they're all good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you have troubles when you're raising and when you're having a shelter, like anything else.
Yeah.
It's going to come with but the good so outweighs the bad that this keeps me going.
Yeah.
It just drives me. I enjoy it, every bit of it. When I see the last chapter of my book is filled with girls' testimonials. And when these things happen, it just melts me, to see these
I'm
things,
sure.
So I had a girl that came to me. She was my 10th client. Her name was Fola. She was from Nigeria, but she was living here because she came from a wealthy family in Nigeria. And in Nigeria, there's a whole group of wealthy people that all follow the same pattern. And one of them is, then they would send their children to Mount Ida College in Newton for the first 2 years, almost like a prep school for college, their first 2 years of college. Fola was there. She met there another man, Nigerian, that wasn't from her hometown. They fell in love, they really did, and she got pregnant. Well, now, she doesn't know what to tell her mother. She's frightened and whatnot. The man never did want to shirk his responsibility. So she called her father up. She didn't tell him she was pregnant. She just said, "I quit school." Well, she was the youngest of 3 children. He figured the most spoiled, and he was going to teach her a lesson, so he cut her off. This is when she went to Pregnancy Help. She must have heard about it somewhere. God is good that way. And they sent her to me. Well, she's with me. She came on, she was only about 2 months along. And like I say, this man never shirked the fact that he was a father. He didn't run. In fact, sometimes she'd go looking for a job. I'd take the baby and her over, and he would babysit for her. He was very nice. So anyway, she goes along. And I'm not saying anything to her. I don't get into their private lives. I will give them, I will give them some direction, but I don't actually tell them how to live their life. So I didn't say anything to her like, when are you going to tell your mother and father you're having a baby or anything? I just let it go. But when she's 8 months along, it finally dawns on her, sooner or later, she's going to have to say something,
Yeah.
So she called her sister, who was a lawyer. And she was here in this country too at the time. And she says to her, this is what happened, really happened. And she told her the story. She says, would you tell Mom and Dad? She wanted her to break the news. So she did. Well, the parents were very godly people. Now they were going to have a grandchild, the first grandchild. And that put in a whole different twist to the whole story.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So the baby was born in February in 1990. I think it was the 21st or 2nd of February. And in June, Fuller came up to me. Sylvia, my mother would like to see the baby. Can she come over here? She said, Sylvia, I'll put a mattress on the floor. She can stay there, she says, and she won't mind staying on the mattress. She said, she just wants to see her grandchild. I said, sure. So she came over, and my thought is this, if I can get him back with the family, half of the battle is won, you know? So I said, sure. Well, the woman was wonderful. At that time, all I had is 4 girls like I have now. She would get up in the morning, make breakfast for them, clean the dishes, clean the living room and whatnot, lunch, dinner. The girls loved it. They had a maid in the house. They had it made.
Yeah.
So come September, though, now, she's used to the hot weather, and the cold weather's coming in. She wants to go back home.
I bet.
And she'd been communicating with her husband, and he says to her, ask her if you can take the baby here. He says, I'll build a nursery in our estate if you will take the baby here. We don't want to take the baby away from her, tell her, but she doesn't know what to do or anything. She has to find her way and get settled in somehow. She can have the baby anytime she wants, or she can come back and live with us. But ask her. So Fuller said yes. In the meantime, while the mother was there, though, she found out the boy's mother, where she lived. So she says, I have a sister in the same town. She said, I'll have her go to the mother and see if we can't get these 2 kids married off. And the boy didn't say, no, I didn't want to marry her. So she had her sister go over to see the mother, and the mother replied, no, they can't get married. She ruined my son's life.
Oh. Well, okay.
He never went back home. He stayed in his country. He went to college here. He ended up with a house of his own and never even married. Well, as time went on, when the mother was leaving with the baby, she says to me, so Annie, they did build her a nursery. She says to me, Sylvia, you're that baby's godmother. That's the way she put it. She says, and I'll always keep you informed on her progress. And she did. When the baby had birthday parties, like her 5th birthday anniversary, she showed me pictures of the birthday party. She put her in private school. The girl got 2 double promotions. At 10 years old, they had a beauty contest for girls 10 years old, don't ask me where. And she won the beauty contest. And she was on all the local papers. They sent me clippings of the papers. When she graduated high school, she graduated at only 16 years old. But by this time, for some reason, the husband was dead, had died just about the same time, and they lost all their money. I don't know how. I don't know but I know that they were broke. But her father, her natural father, had friends in Africa, in Nigeria, and he would ask them to keep him informed on the progress of his daughter. So they did. So he found out after that now they're broke, and that really they need help. So he got in touch with her grandmother, and he says, if you'll bring her here, she can come and live with me, and I'll put her through college. So she did. She went over. They called me up. They said they were coming. I took them out to dinner and whatnot. I took her over to Newport to see all the mansions in Newport, Rhode Island, you know, and whatnot. And she went. The only thing was he did bring, first he put her in a state college for 2 years. And she felt uncomfortable because she was 16 and everybody else was 18.
Yeah.
So she decided to not go to school for 2 years. And what she did was just do volunteer work. In fact, she was at President Obama's first campaign. She was helping them. And she was doing all these things, you know, to keep herself occupied. When she was old enough, she went back to school, and now she's everybody's age. So at first she told me she wanted to go for an MBA, but she must have been talking to her aunt, and the aunt convinced her to become a lawyer. So then the next time I saw her, and I know she's gone back to college, she says, I'm going to Suffolk Law, I want to be a lawyer. I says, fine. So she did, she went to the Suffolk Law, and she was with the father all the time, but they were, I think it was in Brockton. And it was kind of far for her to get to Suffolk Law or Boston. So her grandmother called me. The grandmother now is here too. And she called me and she said, Sylvia, have you got room in your house? She says, no. She says, because she says, Remy wants to be closer to Boston. And I was in Revere at the time. All you had to do was get there. So she says, have you got, and just as she said that, a girl had just left. I says, bring her here. So for 2 last years at Suffolk Law, she was in my house.
You were able to see her.
And so then I was invited to her graduation.
Unbelievable.
And I was over there, you know, and there was a woman sitting beside me, and she just said, is your grandchild graduating? I says, no, she's not my grandchild. I mean, my I said, my grandchild. I says, I run a shelter for homeless women and children. This baby was born in my shelter, and her face just dropped a mile. And it was the most thrilling thing to see her come down that aisle and graduate. It was one of the best gifts I could have ever had in my life. If you gave me $1 million, it couldn't do any better. Today she's working for a law firm in Boston. She does contracts for corporations.
Okay.
And that's what she's doing.
What a story. I'm glad I asked about that one highlight, because that one is definitely memorable. I understand why it came right to your mind.
That's the most memorable.
That's an unbelievable story. Unbelievable story.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
And I'm sure you have, 11,000 more like them, like you said.
That's right.
So anything that we can do to help, please let us know. Please give your phone number. I know we're getting closer to the end of our time together, but if you want to give your email or your phone number again, feel free.
Yeah. Okay.
And feel free to say whatever you want. Yes.
943-4794.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I hope so.
I hope so is right.
Wonderful.
I think that's it, 617-943-4794.
Is there anything that you'd like to leave our viewers with? And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you about to say?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say anything that you want to leave the viewers with.
I
Go
wasn't
ahead.
doing it. No. What is it that you were going to say?
Any closing remarks that you'd like to leave with our viewers, or anything that you'd like to share about your organization in closing?
I definitely, well, this is what I can share. I need all the help I can get. I've been doing this for 32 years, but today it isn't like it was 32 years where the rents are so low. They're so high now, and it's so, and there's another thing. I really want to have a shelter in every state. That is I believe what God is telling me. Now, I can't be in every state, but if anyone would like to do this, I would teach them how to run a shelter. I would give them my 501c3, and they could call it whatever they want so long as they say it's a division of Sylvia's Haven, because they've got my 501c3. But if anyone wants to do this, believe me, it's so worthwhile. It gives you something to look forward to all the time. And I really would love to see it. And if you could call me up, or I've got my website is up there. You can see, just put my name, Sylvia Anthony, on the web, on Google, and you'll get all this information, or Sylvia's Haven, either way, and you'll come up with everything you want. So if you can't get the number or anything, there's everything there for you.
Good,
Okay.
I'm glad. And thank you for coming on today and sharing your story. I'm glad we could have you.
Thank you so very much for having me.
It's
pleasure. Been a pleasure. You've been wonderful.
It's been our pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sylvia. And thank you all for watching today's show with Sylvia Anthony. Remember, just Google Sylvia's Haven or Sylvia Anthony, and you'll learn more about her mission. And remember, we all have one life to live. Let's all do our part. I'm your host, Tyler Gates. Join us again next time for another episode of the Woburn Spotlight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you very much.
Sylvia Anthony of Everett, Massachusetts, serves full-time in the abortion battle. She runs a home for unwed mothers, which offers a practical alternative to abortion. The plight of the unborn spurs Sylvia to action.
To me, it's worse than war. These poor babies haven't had a chance to live or see life.
Sylvia's home for unwed mothers began when she and her husband Rick accepted Jesus Christ while watching the 700 Club. Later, Rick saw a TV program describing the scope of abortion in America. When he called Sylvia in to watch, the program shocked them both.
I had no idea there were that many children being aborted. I was amazed, and he was too. That's why he called me. We had no idea. We knew that, you know, morals are a lot looser today than they used to be, but we had no idea the mass slaughter that was going on until I saw that.
Although Rick suffered from colon cancer, he and Sylvia decided to start a home for women who choose to keep their children rather than abort them. 2 months before Rick died, they incorporated Life for the Little Ones. Widowed but undaunted, Sylvia started taking women into her home. She also called on Operation Blessing to help.
They've been a great help. They started me off. They really gave me the money I needed to start off. I didn't know where I was going to start off. And they encouraged me all the way, and they're right there anytime I need them.
Operation Blessing coordinator Homer Allen explains the importance of Life for the Little Ones.
It's really important because the Lord laid on her heart, and He's laid it on our heart. Christians really need to do more than just protest against abortion. They need also to say, I want to do something for the women who decide they're going to keep their children. And so in this way, Operation Blessing is an extension of Operation Blessing. What Pat has a heart for, what we have a heart for, is to do something to help the women who've decided to keep their children. And that's really the joy that we have here.
Life for the Little Ones is unique because the girls don't have to leave when their baby is born. Fola, an unemployed actress from Nigeria living in Boston, found the emotional and physical refuge she needed to have her baby girl, Remy.
It's highly important because I know pregnancy does take a lot of toll on you emotionally and physically, but the emotional part comes first because you go through all those thoughts like, God, what am I going to do? And if you have a place like this, it takes that away, and all you have to deal with is a pregnancy. Which isn't that easy, but in a sense, in a place like this would be. You know, because we have all the facilities and all the amenities and the clothes, and you don't have to worry about anything. It's like being in your own house. Sylvia, she's great. She's very caring. Very caring. I mean, we call her up anytime if we need anything. She's there.
Since Life for the Little Ones started 5 years ago, lives that could have ended tragically in abortion have been given a second chance. Women have discovered the joy of motherhood, and new families have begun.
That's what it's all about. It's getting these girls to understand, look, you don't have to abort. There are alternatives. We'll help you every way we possibly can if you will just consider keeping that baby.
A passion for God's babies keeps Sylvia going.
I'm not a baby anymore. I don't have to do this. But I want to save these babies. I want them for God. They're His children. And they've got to understand they can't take human life and just snuff it out like it were nothing. They've got to understand that this is God's child. This is God's soul. And for God, it's got to live.